Welcome, everyone, to a special episode of Loser's Lunch, our exploration of excellence in sales, business, capital markets, all things the universe. As I got to get a crew here to help shut everything off and put everything away. We got an intro there, Panama, from Van Halen 1984. The episode's not named Panama because none of this has anything to do with Panama, but there are some tie-ins that we'll get into in a minute. We're joined by special guest, someone that I've known since 2008. So what is that? 14 years, going on 15 years. We've have a tremendous history together and have accomplished a great many things together and faced just about every human emotion that one can face: joy, pain, sorrow, adversity. Without further ado, everyone, Eddy Perez.
Thank you, Phil. And thank you for the introduction. And we definitely have had a hell of a ride together, and one that will continue.
Yes, sir. Hopefully just a little bit easier. Although,
well, you are transitioning into the entrepreneurial space, which obviously I have supported tremendously. And it is definitely a interesting journey once you go down that road. It definitely will be easier. There will be moments that we'll probably laugh at certain things, being like, can't believe you believe, like, dude, does this happen? I'll be like, yeah, this happens. So definitely.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for the hellos. So if anyone's wondering, well, what the hell are they talking about, right? For those of you that are inside of EPM, you sort of got a sneak preview of this on Friday, late Friday afternoon. I am stepping away from my day-to-day responsibilities at EPM Equity Prime Mortgage, not empowering people more, the meta brand, and focusing more on several of our affiliated businesses, our vertical brands, and so forth. Specifically, our AMC, Appraisal Nation. But we have some, the media that ultimately will drive empowering people more, and some of the content that's going to go on there. Also working with an affiliated settlement service that we have a relationship with, and ultimately just trying to help codify within the bigger game plan, if you will, all of these related aspects, if you will, of mortgages. We tend to get sort of wrapped up, and this is something we've explored, quite thoroughly on Loser's Lunch. And in fact, I had a one-on-one, and I told Curtis I was going to share some of my one-on-one with him this morning, but Curtis Swanson, who along with Felix runs one of our offices here at EPM. And he told me a few really, really great stories that, sort of speak to this. Is sometimes when you have, and most of us in business have a specific discipline, very rarely do we sort of do a variety of different things within our businesses. And you just get so focused on your particular discipline that you forget that there's a whole world that's living and breathing around you. And that oftentimes you're not the center of the universe in that regard. And so, ultimately, stepping away from the screen, even though we're going to talk about the markets here in a second, but stepping away from the screen And as you said, Eddie, taking more of an entrepreneurial look at the world of empowering people more is going to be a challenge and a rebirth. It'll probably call on more of my the sales side of me, if you will, and the business side of me, which, I've suppressed a little bit the last 8.5, almost 9 years, where I've been really focused mostly on capital markets here. But it should be fun, which is part of why I played Panama this morning. I look back, 1984, I was 13 years old. Don't date me, anyone out there. I was 13 years, don't judge me. I was 13 years old and getting ready to graduate 6th grade, which in my town meant you'd go to middle school. 7th and 8th grade had its own. So, it was like an awakening of sorts. For those who know that I love Star Wars, always with the Star Wars reference, there's an awakening. Have you felt it? Now, there's good and bad to everything, right? Because we may have unleashed a beast as well, but it'll probably be a more fun beast. Before we get on to our conversation, Eddie, let's just sort of talk about the markets here for a second.
Sure.
Not a hell of a lot going on today. By the way, file your taxes if you haven't. File an extension if you can't. You have until midnight tonight. Do post offices still stay open late? They used to do that. Tomorrow we got some building permits and housing starts. It's 48-hour on Ginny, so you better roll by 2 o'clock if you haven't already. Get those last-minute pulls in. Wednesday, we officially roll Class C, as we like to call it. Another month in the books. The drops have been tough. Hopefully, they tighten a little bit. Mortgages. Will the refi index go below 1,000? We'll see. Existing home sales. On Thursday, we have Philly Fed. Jobless claims. The jobless claims are getting low. Wow. 172 last week, for the record. Wait a minute, though. Siegfried and Roy, one of us better not get attacked by a lion.
Well, I guess we should not play with tigers and lions. Maybe that's
all right. It was a tiger, maybe, but that's funny. And then I always joke about this one. On Friday, we got market PMI, which is MARKIT, not ET. So whenever I've actually written about that, I get some wise ass who always says, market spelled with an E. It's not in that case. So what are we saying here? Well, you know what, guys? I'm sort of getting to the point where I'm not a hell of a lot sure that I'm going to tell you to lock at a 2.85 10-year. Now, what's interesting about that, and I'll throw that, I'll throw this out there. I can't give you a real-time number. I'm going off of MBS Live, and I always give Matthew Graham a little bit of a shout-out, although some of the LOs who use this are like in a panic every 2-tick move. Coupon has actually been pretty resilient today. And we're, the reason for that is if you pull a chart, and I don't think I talked about this on last week's episode, but we're basically at 10-year worst levels for mortgage TBAs. And when I always preach sort of grassroots capital markets, back in napkin capital markets, I think that we should always endeavor to keep things simple. And we're going to talk about that in business here in a second. But, I just simply ask people, remove yourself from real estate, remove yourself from mortgages for a second, and remove yourself from Bitcoin, okay? Have the last 3 years really been better than the 3 years prior to that in your business lives? For most people, the answer is probably not. And we've talked ad nauseum about this recovery not really hitting everyone. I've shown you charts. I've shown you data. So if you consider that we are basically at the highest rates we've seen in a decade, right? Is it feasible for us to really push through that? I don't see it. I get the inflation argument. I still don't see it. I'm getting to the point here where I'm almost advocating against locking. Still play protect. I think if you don't lock and you do float, bulls and bears make money, pigs get slaughtered. Reds. Well, I can't talk too much about the way the Yankees have started out. If you want me to get on a rant about the Steinbrenner and Cashman, don't get me going. But cheapos, most valuable. Oh, come on, I'm not going to talk about it. But we're getting close to the float zone here, folks. I'm just going to say that. We're getting close. I took a bunch of notes on a bunch of my calls this morning. A lot of shit to talk about. You met 7. That's because Cohen's spending like a drunken sailor. That's how it works. Overspend, and then you win.
Well, what do you expect? When he got busted for insider trading, he didn't have to pay that much. It was a cost of doing business.
Yeah, boy, I mean, there's a lot to unpack in that statement.
Well, let's not go there, but yeah, that's
the Phils. Yeah, the Phils shouldn't have. We had Bryce Harper handed to us on a silver platter, and frankly, I was not a huge advocate of overspending for Bryce Harper, but stupid not to get him. You have a guy who wants to be on the team, who grew up, his father idolized Mickey Mantle. Okay, you sign the guy. It's a good story. Eddie, and this is a good place for us to start.
Okay.
If you feel good about what you're doing, okay, and Bryce Harper would have lived and breathed and bled and slept Yankees, I would have argued that would have contributed to making Bryce Harper the best Bryce Harper that he could be. Okay. Now I'm giving you here. I agree, Chris. I'm giving you a belt high fucking fastball. It's not going to all be this easy. Okay. It's not going to be all this easy. But how does feeling good about your job equate to doing a good job in your opinion? What says you, Eddie G?
I mean, I would never use the number 100%, but I'd probably say 95%. I mean, you got to love what you're doing and you got to follow your passions, especially in baseball, because that's where you see, he probably took more money to go somewhere else just to make himself feel better because he didn't get to go live his best version. And why you see sometimes people, as they say, take the hometown discount because they do believe that that'll give them the best version. And usually they make it up too, to your point. If you're living your best version, you make it up in the intangibles, maybe more endorsements, how you play, other people level up. And a lot of times what you get paid isn't just in dollars. Maybe you help contribute to championships because you can circle around other people. We've seen, in different sports, but you've seen when Tom Brady gave up a lot of income about 9-10 years ago, and then how that second run went. So I would tell you 95%, I'd probably say at least, if not higher.
But let me say a couple things. Number one, if Mike Galasso says one more fucking thing about the Red Sox, Jenna, block his posts. No more Red Sox, Michael. So you said a few things here, and I'd like to touch on them.
Sure.
So first things first, I had a one-on-one this morning with a pretty accomplished gentleman. And he talked about how a few months back, and maybe not in absolutes, right? I mean, sometimes we just go through these machinations in our head, and he conceded I probably wouldn't have come to this. But he said, I got into a really dark space and I just wasn't really enjoying the business anymore. And I said, I could relate to that. And we might even talk about that a little bit here. We try to keep it real on Losers Lunch for the, in this exploration of excellence, as I like to say. We try to lift all boats with a rising tide. But he talked about how he really became disgruntled with the business. Now, first things first, here's the other thing. We're going to probably go over 30 minutes. I don't want to hear any bullshit on that. But you can't change the world on a time clock. But and I could relate to that, and wait. Very nice, Mike. All right, we can keep him talking. But I said, and I could relate to that. I mean, P. Diddy said more money, more problems. Jay-Z said I got 99 problems or whatever, and we've talked about this a lot on Losers Lunch is in business, oftentimes 1 + 1 = 3. Okay. And what I have found in one of my one-on-ones last week, because this has come up a lot lately, and Eddie, you did allude to this, where people are beginning to question their existence, beginning to question the industry because it's not so easy. I mean, it's like it's work. I mean, it's work. And then we were equating it to sports because there was a post, like I only tweet about, how pissed off I am that the Yankees didn't sign good players and how Hal Steinbrenner's a cheapskate and Cashman's an idiot. But so when I'm talking about this stuff, and it's like, when a coach loses players, okay, why does he, lose his players? Is because they don't believe, in the voice, right?
Yeah.
In business, why? Yeah, and in business, why do we lose our way sometimes? Is, we begin to question ourselves potentially, or we don't understand that 1 + 1 = 3, or what are the intangibles that you or others are bringing that you really can't put a value to? All of this stuff is somewhat interrelated. And I said to, this gentleman, and he said he learned to let go. And letting go is a tough thing, right? Mm-hmm. And, you look at, my career, and specifically my career at EPM, and I feel like I've been fairly successful at letting a number of things go. But the one thing that I really held on to was being a slave to the screen and to the market, instead of maybe taking a bit of a step back at times that required me to do that. And in some ways, that made me a less happy person. And today is really a new day for me that I'm really excited about. And I think that, we've had some stressful moments in the last 6 months in our relationship, Eddie, which we hadn't experienced prior to that.
Sure.
And I think that what's interesting about that, folks, and the reason why I bring that up is so often in life and in business, we create this narrative within our heads that really doesn't exist other than within our own heads. Mm-hmm. And we talk about embracing conflict a lot, but we're human beings. We're fallible. As much as you may follow my content on social media or Eddie's content on social media, you might be watching the program looking to learn. And I say I learn as much from this at times as you guys do. I learn as much on all these one-on-ones that I'm doing as you guys do, because we're always trying to endeavor to grow and be better. And so I say, to you, Eddie, what do you do in this constant pursuit of learning about yourself and not getting trapped in what you think is the truth and might not be?
I mean, I think reflection is very powerful, and true self-reflection where you take notes, write them down, learn about yourself. But at the same token, as you say, we as humans are fallible. You got to be a little kind to yourself, because beating yourself up is not going to get you further. I'm not saying you don't hold yourself accountable for maybe decisions you made or where you go, but humanity for the most part is pretty kind if you start taking steps to make things right. And to your point, like you're saying, to be very honest with yourself on the best version of who you want to be. Like you said, I know that for a long time, a lot of your passions has been the sales side and building businesses and others up. And that's now what you get to play into. You enjoyed the market side, just like, I enjoyed the loan side, having been an originator, but I've also thoroughly enjoyed more building others up and really growing and reflecting on myself, because I understand that requires a higher level of responsibility, which could also be more stressful, as crazy as that sounds, even though it's the best version of yourself. So you just learn how to handle those pressures. But I would say to you, 10, 20 minutes a day, just a real self-reflection, some point in time at the end of your day, to navigate it and then to read it the next morning will really set you pretty on the beaten path forward in a very positive, optimistic, but not delusional way.
Yeah. And the fear point is spot on. In fact, what I was speaking with, I also had a one-on-one with Curtis. I think I might have alluded to it, but I had a one-on-one with Curtis Swanson, who runs EPM's Orlando, or technically Maitland branch with Felix. And I probably had one of the most proud moments that I've ever had as in my business life. Curtis, this office has been a strength of EPM's now for the better part of 5 or 6 years. Great office. One of the issues and challenges has always been that there's always been a little bit of an imbalance in the dynamic of sales versus ops versus management and direction. And it was always like a little bit of a fire drill, and we got to close loans and the pricing and all this other stuff. And we had a manager in place that really didn't share our vision. And then we sort of thrust Curtis and Felix into it, and they've done an awesome job. But from time to time, Curtis and I would get into it and be like, dude, you sound like the last guy. Come on.
Oh, wow, you're going there.
I'm going there, baby. It's loser's lunch. No, because I'm just so proud of Curtis about this. And I'm like, dude, you sound like him. And he'd get so pissed off that I said that he sounded like him. I mean, just so mad. But he did. And he said, we had a meeting last week or wherever, and he got the message out that he needed to get out. That 1 + 1 = 3. That the benefits of what we're doing you may not yet see. That we're doing great things as a company, and for you need to meet us halfway. And he was invigorated by it. He was liberated because of it. The response was fantastic. And part of it, and I said to him, and we talked a little bit about, trusting others and the fear thought. And I said, look, I had a call with Appraisal Nation on Thursday, and my mantra was, and I said this at EPM about 1.5 years ago to the securitization and fulfillment group. Don't ever do anything because of your boss, because of EPM, whatever. You do it for yourself. Be selfish with your intentions and generous with your actions. Okay? I want to be clear about what I mean for that. Was that Curtis moment a source of pride for you because I mean, sure. I mean, there's always that, validation that the work we've been doing, but no, because I would say mostly because we're now aligned. He's aligned with the philosophy, and he's been able to level up. The fact that I may have played a small part in it, sure, it's absolutely a sense of personal validation, Michael. But so being selfish with your intentions means, hey, I want to do well because I want to have more money, so this way I can get the G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip. my instinct for my kids, my instinct for survival is always going to be greater than my instinct to help others. That's human nature. Anybody that says otherwise isn't being honest with themselves. Okay. However, by being generous in your actions, if you love something or someone, set it free, right? It oftentimes comes back to you severalfold. Would you rather, and I think that this is some of the push and pull in social media right now. I watched an Elon Musk blurb where he said the danger of social media is that we're tricked into thinking that people are better looking and happier than they really are. And most of those people that look really happy are actually really miserable, And so when you have an agenda, right? If I said to you, Eddie, daisies are the most beautiful flowers in the world, right? So my intentions, are colored by the fact that I think daisies are beautiful. And then I lie, cheat, and steal to get you to like daisies. Okay. Right. Is that better than me saying, hey, Eddie, I want you to buy daisies because I make a lot of money when you do. But in saying that, I create a scenario whereby you benefit from it, where the world is a better place. So I argue in business that the moment that you come to grips with the fact that your source of inspiration should be yourself, but your actions should be about everybody else, that's the magic. What do you think about that? Agree, disagree?
I
or
agree.
Or you have your own spin?
Well, I don't know if you really want to call it a spin, because one of the things I've always said is I have recommended to people to be extremely selfish with yourself, because the best way to be selfish is to make others better and lift them up, because the way you understand that you had a purpose and meaning in life. So I know that is viewed as very selfless, because what you said is true. It's your actions that are selfless, but your inspiration is to live the best version of yourself. I think in that sense, it's extremely great. So to your point, it's an and. You can be very selfish and selfless. And that's why I say is I agree with you, because it's how you've illustrated it, is that your inspiration, your life, whatever you're wiring, your purpose and meaning, whatever that is, only you know that. And you can come to terms with that, can be lived by getting other people better and lifting up their best version. That is very selfless and fun and enjoyable, and moments that are built in memories. So I agree.
Well, Michael alludes to something that's a potentially dangerous thing. I mean, are there people that sort of thrive off other people's needs and neediness? I don't know that we have enough time in this segment. Nor do I know that that's what pays the bills around here, Michael. But maybe we'll do another program that's based on shrink-like stuff, and we could figure that out.
Well, no, I think the challenge is what he's alluding to. I think we've illustrated it well, that about the self and your own self-worth and your self-assurance, and then you lift others up. I think what is dangerous with what he says is if you base it on this, if you survive only to make other people happy, then I'll tell you, you may not love yourself.
Yeah. And Christy, you hit it right on, because I don't know, by the way, we better check the phone system. She may have been listening in on my conversation with Curtis. So, because what he mentioned something about, sort of giving away control and trusting others, right? And I said two things to him. I said, look, I understand that I wasn't a founder of EPM, but I've been here for 9 years almost. 9 years in round numbers, and again, don't date me, but it's about 20% of my life, and really almost a third of my adult and or professional life. 35 years in the business, 9 years, 26, 27%. Okay. This is my baby, right? Hard to let it go if it's not the right thing. Again, And so what I said to Curtis, because I used that as an example and as a validation of what his actions were and his thoughts had been, is part of the reason, and I knew he had leveled up ultimately. And Michael, that was the huge thing. It is a gift. It is, you need to be happy and confident and trusting of yourself first. And that's what I said to Curtis. I said, the reason in my experience why folks don't trust their subordinates or their coworkers or whatever, is because they don't trust themselves. If you become a subject matter expert in a variety of different things, not just in your own discipline, if you become a subject matter expert in psychology, in what moves people to action, as we've talked about on Loser's Lunch, on about relationship and such. If you level yourself up, okay, you can give others the freedom to run, because then you know when to kind of rein them in. You could sort of be the behind the scenes guardrails. Mm-hmm. But if you don't know what the fuck you're doing, okay, it's really dangerous to allow other people to go out there and screw stuff up, because that's when it spirals out of control. It's the old Reagan thing, trust but verify sort of situation. And Curtis, in saying that, Curtis is like, I said, look, never lose sight of the fact that you should be your toughest critic. You should have higher standards for yourself than anything that any manager, any executive, any owner should put on you. You should drive yourself to level up, to always ask the next question, to never be satisfied, to always worry about what's behind you or what's in front of you. And even if you don't know what that threat is, if you do those things, you mentioned Tom Brady, right? Left what is arguably the greatest franchise, to prove to himself that he could do it again, then retires and says, what the hell did I do? Because he's his own, he doesn't give a shit what anybody else says. He's haunted by his own passion. And isn't really everything that we've been doing with Broker Success, with EPMX, with Empowering People More, with your podcast, with Loser's Lunch, with now the whole perspective, and all this other content that's to come, isn't it about being the best version of ourselves that we could be? And if we are, it's an abundance mind. We're not threatened by the competition. We're driven by it.
Well, what you illustrate, and when we're talking about self, is that we really realized early on that the greatest competitor is ourselves. And there is competition, and there's competition to raise, to do yourself better. However, that's a gift, because the competition sets the bar and you know what you got to go after. The competition only makes you better if you understand they're not your competitor. You are the only person who tells yourself the honest lies, which we all tell ourselves more than anybody else, lies in the mirror, is where you can go and really live that best version of yourself. And to your point, abundance mindset, I used to call it younger, a surplus mindset. This industry, even though we're in these tough times, is still going to do a lot of trillions of dollars. It's still opportunity. You just may have to level up and take on head first the best version of yourself. You may not be able to sleep until 7 o'clock. You may have to start getting up at 6, but still getting plenty of rest and being your best version, but not sleeping in. Just maybe what's needed.
So, all right, so let's begin to take this home, because I think we can sort of combine a bunch of stuff we've touched on. And I'm going to allude to a social media post by Anthony Casa this weekend. Stop bitching about rates and inventory. So we talked about leveling up, okay, oneself. We talked about being your own worst critic. We talked about being driven. We talked about making excuses, false narratives. Here's the false narrative. I can't sell because. We can't do, hit a goal because. Rates stink, product stinks, service stinks, I stink, you stink, we all stink, whatever it might be. Okay, take a shower.
A mental shower, definitely.
A mental shower.
Yeah.
And Anthony goes up there and says, and then Tom Mancuso, my long lost, brother out there, 85% of the decisions are made on the fifth phone call. We only make the fifth phone call 10 or 15% of the time. And I've said this before. So on all the fails, here come the excuses. When all it is you just didn't make the fifth phone call. Okay. At what point, right, do we as a community, a lending community, whether you're in real estate, whether you're in mortgages, I've got some insurance folks out there watching, or other businesses, at what point do we individually and collectively stop passing the buck? Stop making excuses. Stop blaming others. What do we say?
Thumbs out, not guns out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I got a little bit of a tan this weekend. So our connection wasn't so good when we were talking about that. So I thought you said suns out, guns out. No. So no. It was
thumbs out, man. Thumbs out.
Thumbs out, not
because when you point a finger, it's like pointing a gun.
Yeah. And, it's just so often, right? We want to create a truth. I love it, Michael.
Yeah.
We want to create a truth because it's easy on us. We want to create a truth because it fits our narrative. We want to create a truth because it's soothing to our own egos. Rather than the reality. And I love Disney, so I'm going to get my little Disney thing in here. Pushing us to plus it. And I got to tell you something, folks. And I might, I know that this is unconventional for someone who runs a program, but if you don't believe in this, don't watch. That's what this is about. It's about never being satisfied. It's about always blaming yourself first. It's about not making excuses. It's about, are you willing to eat loser's lunch? And I think we've tackled all of that during the course of this 38 minutes. So I'll ask this last question. In the pursuit of, that ultimate goal, whatever that ultimate goal might be, and the understandings of the ebbs and the flows and all the excuses that you could make along the way, right? 3 branch companies or whatever the number was, go out of business on you, screw you in the process, right? 2008, when we met again, time 3, 2008 and then 2010 and then 13, really, the taper tantrum, Hurricane Sandy. There were a number of obstacles. Yeah, I mean, Julian, I've been saying this, right? Obstacles are reasons for losers to make excuses and reasons for winners to shine, opportunities to shine. So, you've had in your career certainly a number of reasons to sort of mail it in, to say, make an excuse. This was too much to overcome. This wasn't my fault, my problem. Why didn't you? How didn't you? What sort of tip might you leave for somebody out that's watching or listening to say, get over yourself, make a decision. Is this really what I want? And if this is what you want, then this is what you have to do.
I've always had a lot of inspiration given my background, how I grew up. So, I have a huge passion for this industry. It's like I said, I think the real estate sector, as I've said before, when you include the commercial side and what we do for our fellow Americans, moves $7 trillion. How I know that a home, let it be an apartment, a hotel, a single family residence, how much happiness that brings to people. It could also not bring happiness, but it's really about what you do. And I've always had a lot of fun getting 1% better every day and really focusing on that, because I believe in my truth that that's what keeps somebody and grows their mental health, grows their self-assurance, really makes them the best version of themselves. Mailing it in or giving it up, I would have very much felt empty regardless of how many successes I had or what the world tells you is success, where, yes, I could retire. I wouldn't have lived my purpose and mission in life, which is a conversation I had with my father on his deathbed, to leave this country a better place because of how great this country did for so much of my family having come here. And I know that's a narrative I talk about because I know that there are others out there that feel that way. Even if it isn't about this country, but it is about themselves and what's possible. So at the end, I wouldn't have been able to look myself in the mirror knowing that I mailed it in, because then I didn't keep my promise, as well as my family's promise, of leaving this country a better place. And that's it. So those are in the hard days, as I've said before, I'm not a 5-year-old boy having to learn English again. I don't have to think about what my father and my uncle went through. So it just gives me a lot of solace and peace.
Good stuff. I guess maybe the one topic that we didn't cover today, folks, that has been a common theme on Losers Lunch is work-life balance and how there's really no such thing. I think we just covered that here, and we can wrap this in a bow. And thank you for joining us on this episode.
Absolutely.
What we can figure out here, and whatever modicum of success that we've had at EPM, right? I think what you learn is this: if you don't take anything away from this episode, is that both Eddy and I are lifers. Both Eddy and I are passionate about home ownership and our role in the pursuit thereof. Mm-hmm. And while we've been thrown obstacles and challenges in our careers, because our why is similar, it's rooted in our families, as I would imagine most people's whys are. I think in some cases, folks just haven't really understood or identified that. And we understand that our ability to contribute to the world in this way is a tremendous gift that we've been given. Then it better positions us to deal with those obstacles in a constructive way.
Perspective. It just gives you a lot of perspective.
Many of the truths that we cling to are based on a certain point of view. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Todd. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
It was an awesome episode. I hope everyone enjoyed. And I will see you next week with a new special co-host. We don't know who that is yet, although we have our list together. I don't know who's confirmed yet or not with Jenna. But as always, rock on, hang loose.
Be well.
And be well.
Take care.